Hello and welcome to Excel Mathematics TV. This presentation will be about subtracting integers. Do you know how to subtract integers? In this lesson, we're going to learn how to subtract them. We have two different methods when it comes to subtracting integers. The first method is by using counters. So what are counters? For those who don't know yet, counters can be used to model integers. We have two types of them. Yellow counters represent positive integers, while red counters represent negative integers. These two counters can actually solve subtraction of integers. The second method is by using the rule. In every math lesson, there are always rules that we should follow. To subtract the integers a minus b, just add the opposite of b to a. And when we say opposite, it means the opposite sign. We just change the sign of b and change the operation to addition. Then a minus b becomes a plus negative b. Now that addition is involved, we need to review the rules in adding integers. Let's recall rules in adding integers with the same sign. A positive integer added to a positive integer is equal to a positive integer, and a negative integer added to a negative integer is equal to a negative integer. Basically, we just add the numbers and copy the common sign. Now let's talk about the rule in adding integers with different signs. Just take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. Subtract whichever has smaller absolute values from the one with greater absolute values, and take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. Don't forget these methods. Now that we know the methods and the rules, it's time to put them into action. Let's first try subtracting positive integers. First, we have 7 minus 3. For each example, we will use both methods. Let's first use the counter method. The two integers are 7 and 3, right? And they are both positive. So we will use the yellow counters for both. Put 7 yellow counters on the mat to represent positive 7, and remove 3 yellow counters to indicate that we are subtracting 3 from 7. And all we need to do now is to count the counters left on the mat. It sure is pretty easy to count them. There are 4 yellow counters left. Then, 7 minus 3 is 4. 4 is the answer we got using the first method. And it is positive because there are only yellow counters on the mat. Yellow counters represent positive integers. Let's now try using the second method, which is using the rule. Remember the rule? We just need to add the opposite of the second integer to the first integer. So add the opposite of 3, which is negative 3, to 7, and 7 minus 3 becomes 7 plus negative 3. As you can see, the expression became addition, so the rules in adding integers can now apply. The integers are now 7 and negative 3, and they have different signs, so we should apply the rule in adding integers with different signs. Doing so will give us an answer of 4. Thus, 7 minus 3 is equal to 4. Moving forward, let's now study how to subtract negative integers. We can learn that by solving an example. Let's solve negative 4 minus negative 2. Again, we will use both methods, the counters and the rules. Let's use the first method. Since the integers are both negative, we will use the red counters. Put 4 red counters on the mat to represent negative 4, and remove 2 red counters. What should we do next? That is to count the remaining counters on the mat. As you can see, there are 2 red counters left. Then negative 4 minus negative 2 is negative 2. We can use the negative sign because the counters left are red. Red counters represent negative integers. Now it's time to use the second method of applying the rules in subtracting integers. The opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, or simply 2. According to the rules, we need to add it to the first integer, which is negative 4. Then the expression is now negative 4 plus 2. And it's time to add. We have different signs again, so we should apply the rules in adding integers with different signs. 4 has a greater absolute value, so let's take it. 4 minus 2 is 2, and the sign of 4 is negative. Then it is equal to negative 2. Thus, negative 4 minus negative 2 is equal to negative 2. In using the first method, which is using counters, sometimes there aren't enough counters to remove. In that case, we need to use zero pairs. This is the last topic for this lesson. Let's have an example to understand the concept of zero pairs. Find -1 minus 8. We will use the method 1 in this example. As usual, put one red counter on the mat to represent -1, and the next step is to remove 8 yellow counters. However, there are no yellow counters. As you can see, we only have one red counter. So, what should we do? This is where the concept of zero pairs comes in handy. Since we need to remove 8 yellow counters, we will add 8 zero pairs. Remember that adding zero pairs will not change the values of the integers because the value of each pair is 0. Let's count the zero pairs we will add. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and finally the 8th zero pair. Look, there are yellow counters now. So we can remove 8 yellow counters to indicate that we are subtracting 8. After that, count the counters that are left on the mat. You can see that there are 9 red counters. That means -1 minus 8 is equal to -9. Let's also solve the same example using the second method. This will help us check if we really got the correct answer in using zero pairs. The second method is by using the rules. The second integer is 8, and we need to change its sign. So add -8 to -1, and the expression becomes -1 plus -8. Applying the rules in adding integers with different signs will result to -9. And we got the same answer. Thus, -1 minus 8 is really -9. That's all for this lesson. There are always more than one way to solve math problems. In this lesson, we use 2 methods in subtracting integers. It's up to you which method you will use. Choose whichever method is comfortable for you. Just make sure that your answer is always correct. Thank you, and see you next time.